Hey guys, really glad to be talking to you on this Saturday. Looking forward to what you guys think about what's going on in Syria. I'm going to talk about that, going to read some articles to you guys. But I think first we're going to begin, as we always do, with our passage of the week. So enjoy this from James. I'm going to begin as I always begin my episodes. I'm going to begin the live stream the same way. James 1, 1-3. James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes in the dispersion. Greetings. Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. I say this not at all referencing what's going on to the people of Syria. They are going through physical pain that is very, very sad. Many Christians have. Are there Christians in Syria who are being persecuted because of their faith? There are many people who think so. Why do I say that? What evidence is there of this? Well, 600 people are dead now. Was it religiously motivated? I'm going to let you guys know as soon as I know. But what we do know is that the CIA backed rebel groups against the Assad administration. And as a result, the dictator, right? That's what we were told over and over about Assad. The dictator is gone. But so it also seems that stability is gone. That this regime, though it had its drawbacks and its downsides for sure, though it killed people, yeah, at times when President Obama said, "Don't you do that, I'm going to draw a red line." Well, now people are dead. And some people called it. Article through Fox News. Tulsi Gabbard's warning to Senate on Syria proves prophetic as Al-Qaeda-linked regime slaughters minorities. The director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard's warning of a terrorist takeover in Syria looks to be coming true amid reports that Al-Qaeda-linked terror groups aligned with Syria's interim new president, a former Al-Qaeda terrorist, are being accused of massacring Alawites as well as members of the country's dwindling Christian community. Syrian security forces and affiliated gunmen have killed more than 340 civilians, the vast majority of them from the Alawite minority, over the last 2 days. Rami Abdulrahman of the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights told Reuters on Saturday. At Gabbard's Senate confirmation hearing, she said, "I have no love for Assad or any dictator. I just hate Al-Qaeda. I hate that our leaders cozy up to Islamic extremists, calling them rebels," as Jake Sullivan said to Hillary Clinton. Jake Sullivan said, "Al-Qaeda is on our side in Syria. Syria is now controlled by Al-Qaeda offshoot-led HTS, led by an Islamist jihadist who danced in the streets on 9/11 and who was responsible for the killing of many American soldiers." An Alawite woman from the region of Al-Ghab, where there's a majority Alawite population, told Fox News Digital the forces said, "Alawites are pigs and they have to execute all of them and the small children before the elderly people." So this is not what the Alawites are saying. This is the Alawites talking about the kind of persecution they're facing, that these people that are killing them are calling them pigs. The witness spoke on the condition of anonymity for fear of reprisal from the authorities. Let me pause the article. If Syria is a democracy, why are people afraid to speak? Let me get a little bit light in here. Why are people so afraid to speak if Syria is a democracy? Isn't that what we were told? That Syria was now becoming a democracy? That's why? Well, Assad was a strong man. We had to back the rebels to make Syria more democratic. But here we have in this article, someone is too afraid to speak because of reprisal from the authorities, not social pressure, not, if you will, Syrian cancel culture of, "We can't believe you said that. We're not shopping at your business," something like that. He or she explicitly said reprisal from the authorities. Now, this witness, looks like it was a female, said that 2 militias had entered her house on Thursday and searched her residence for weapons. One of the members, so this is a member of a militia, "put a gun to my head and asked for all my money. They took all the money and took money from our neighbors." She confirmed reports that the Islamist forces murdered the prominent Alawite 86-year-old cleric Shaban Mansour and his son Hussein Shaban. Reuters reported that Mansour was killed on Friday with his son in the village of Salab in western Syria. Residents there accused fighters aligned with Damascus of killing them. A sizable Christian population living in the area has also reportedly been under attack. Greco-Levantines, worldwide media, reported that a young family, including their infant child, was killed on Friday. A father and son, Tony and Fadi Petrus, was also executed by Islamists. The witness said that in other Alawite towns, Nar el-Bared and Dir Shamil, the Islamist militias are entering houses and killing people and stealing everything. They are covering their faces. This witness goes on, I feel there is no safety, there is no homeland, there is nowhere to escape to and no one to defend us. I feel fear and horrifying feelings. The witness added that the Islamists are Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, and other such groups affiliated with HTS who stormed her region. She said HTS terrorists were Syrian Arabs because of their spoken Arabic. Ahmed Sharad, probably should be Ahmed Sharad, and his group, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, a U.S.-designated Sunni terrorist organization, toppled the former Syrian President Bashar Assad in December. Assad is a member of the Alawite minority, an offshoot of Shiite Islam. The Alawites comprise roughly 10% of the Syrian population. Black people in America are roughly 12 or 13%. Think about if there was a group walking around killing these people, how the typical American would feel. Now look at what's going on in Syria. We had to replace Assad because he was, quote, a strong man and that Syria was not so-called democratic. Killing members of a community that make up 10% of the population. And people like me will talk about it. Tucker Carlson will talk about it a little bit. This person writing for Fox News is talking about it. But you know the real problem? It's not even the lack of people talking about this seriously. There are people bringing this news up. But what's going to happen? The Fox News conservatives are going to say, time for war with Syria. Right? We created this problem with our own CIA. Only we can fix it. How about leave Syria alone completely? How about we allow them to do what they see best as they see fit? What business is it of ours to intervene again? America's track record in these things is really not that good, is it? Every time we get involved, things inevitably get worse. And then when we get involved again to fix our mistake, when has it gotten better? American foreign policy has been a net negative. The John Boltons, the George Bushes, the Mitch McConnells and Lindsey Grahams, they get their kickbacks, they get their money whenever we go to war. But who loses consistently every time we get involved in another war? And it doesn't even have to be a hot war. It could be foreign aid being sent. It could be drone strikes. Who always loses? You. Because your money coming from you is going to that country. Not only that, let's say theoretically it's not the money of your children, your grandchildren. You may be like, I'm 18 years old. I don't have any children yet. Well, God willing, one day you will. And unfortunately, the government has a plan for their income. Part of it is going to go to foreign countries. We are going into debt right now. What does Scripture say? Does Scripture say, well, debt, as long as it's done for the right purposes, is okay? The Bible says the borrower is slave to the lender. When has Congress ever lived by that? Well, our young Congress did better, admittedly. We had a president once, Andrew Jackson, who got our debt down to a few $1,000s. I mean, when it was in the hundreds of thousands, he got it down to a couple thousand. He also went to war against the central bank, right? But it's been a very long time since we've had a president like that, hasn't it? And what we have going on right now is a group of conservatives, the Fox News types, as I said, who are beating the war drums. If you ever see Lindsey Graham talk about this, or Sean Hannity on Fox News, anyone else, it's going to be, we need to go in there and stop Al-Qaeda terrorists in Syria. there will be no recognition that they created this problem with their war drums of Assad must go, Assad must go. And then the CIA goes in there. Thousands dead. Now, I just read to you an article saying that there was over 300 people dead. But here we have another article from Boston Globe saying 2 days of clashes in Syria leave 600 people dead. Another article here. This is by Support India or the India.com news decks. And the reason I'm reading stuff like this, you may say, well, that doesn't sound particularly recognizable. Do you want me to read CNN or MSNBC? No. Violent clashes erupt in Syria as Assad supporters clash with security forces. Worst hit regions are, and it goes on from there. There's unrest in Syria. There was a period of peace for about 2 months. During these 2 months, it seemed that normal life might begin in this country, which has been burning in flames of civil war for years. But war has started again in the country. Violent clashes have begun. Former President Bashar al-Assad has returned to a fighting mood about 2 months after being ousted from power. The latest violence in Syria has erupted in the strongholds of the Alawite community in the northwest of the country, where security forces have launched a large-scale campaign to find and arrest supporters of former President Assad. Now, do you trust these militias in Syria for why they're doing what they're doing? They say, oh, we're just arresting people who are a security threat to us. They were supporters of Bashar al-Assad. Are they presenting proof that these people were? Or are they just instead killing or arresting people in this Alawite community? I ask you that. According to reports, more than 200 people are officially dead so far. The actual death toll is expected to be even higher. Among the deceased are dozens of officials and soldiers from Syria's new government. The Alawite community, a minority in Syria, makes up only 10%. President Bashar al-Assad hails from this community, whose family has ruled Syria for over 50 years. And this started Thursday, March the 6th. You know, this is my question for you, and I'm going to read some messages in a moment. When are people going to get tired? When are people going to get sick of everything going on? Every so often, someone gets in there who's marginally better. Instead of having Gerald Ford, you get a Ronald Reagan again. I understand that he did Iran-Contra. I understand that he did the deal over in Iran to get the prisoners exchanged. I've covered that in depth on this podcast. Now, not live streams that I've done, but full-length episodes. You can find them over on Spotify, Amazon Music, and Audible, and Substack. Just look up Reagan, and you'll find it pretty quickly. Reagan and Bush. And I've talked about that over time. But the thing is, people, Reagan was a little bit better than Carter, because what happened whenever a Marine base got hit in Iran and 200 Marines died, and you can see this, by the way, Lindsey Graham tweeted this recently about how mad he was that President Reagan didn't do something bigger and stronger. Did Reagan go to war with Iran? No. He got us out of there, and he should have. That was probably one of the few things Reagan did right. Okay, supply side economics had some upsides as well after the disaster of the Carter administration. I have my criticisms of capitalism. I think that it was marginally better for the working man. Wages did go up. Did they go up enough? Not nearly. But that's a non sequitur. That's something else for me to talk about in the more populist discussion that I have. I'm not a populist, but we can have a discussion on policy at some point. Having to do with foreign policy. So you have a Ford, then a Reagan. Well, who was before Ford? Nixon, who was a lot better. Then Reagan, then Bush Sr. and Jr. Man, what a disaster. Anyone else feel that way? And then Trump in his first term, which in ways was better, in ways was worse. Kind of like Reagan. It was a real mixed bag. Because for every good thing I can say, I can probably say another bad thing. But the good thing about this second term is it looks like it's going in a more positive direction. It's really too soon to tell. We're not really going to know how well Trump's going to do until January the 21st. That'll be when he's gone for a full day of 2029. That'll be when he's actually out. Then we'll be able to look at his whole term and say, okay, how did that go? Was he overall a good president? Was he a consequential president? Absolutely. Especially the movement behind it. The movement was really more important than the man. But that's what happens, isn't it? We have cycles. Nixon, Ford, Reagan a little bit better, Bush, and then we have Trump. So things get marginally better, then they get worse again. And this is a question I have for you guys. I have a decent amount of people watching me right now, and I appreciate all of you. Are you tired? Are you tired of, and there's an amazing book about this, are you tired of the stupid party? This is a book by Clyde Wilson. It's a must-read. Annals of the Stupid Party. And this is about 2016 Trump before he became president, so it's way bigger, more pro-Trump than he probably is now. I don't know Clyde Wilson, but I'm just saying. But he makes the point in that book, the Republican Party has never been the conservative party. They dress up like they are, but they're not. And it's well said and well spoken. So with all that being said, this is my question for you. Are you tired? And when are you going to get it? When are you going to get it? That going into a voting booth and voting for whoever has an R next to their name isn't working. When are you going to get it that it's time to back people that are a little bit more on the fringe, people a little bit more radical right-wing? We need a radically right-wing vanguard in this country, frankly, to take shape and rise. Because if we don't, what the title of this video is, this live stream, is more of what you're going to get. More CIA coups in foreign countries, more beating of war drums. And I've talked a lot about Fox News, and I'm going to say one more thing about them, then I'll probably be done. They are in many ways the problem. Because why? Your uncle, your aunt, your cousin, depending on how old you are, but a lot of older people and some younger people, they go home from work, they sit in front of the TV, and they think they're being educated by Fox News. And what they see is Lindsey Graham being interviewed by Sean Hannity, and they say, oh, well, look, I mean, he's being interviewed on the conservative network. So Lindsey Graham is a conservative. If Fox News would ask the right questions, why did you just vote to send $48 billion more dollars to Ukraine? What is your problem? Why are you wanting to bomb everyone across the globe? Why have you given amnesty to so many illegal immigrants in your career? You stepped into politics when Strom Thurmond stepped out. Have you lived up to his legacy? No, you really haven't. They won't ask those questions. Fox News is the problem in many ways. And you're being uneducated. You're being indoctrinated, miseducated whenever you listen to them. I'm getting some messages in the chat. I'm going to read this. I don't actually have a lot of time left for this stream. I'm loving it. I'm talking to you guys. I want to hear your thoughts about what's going on. Let's read some comments here in the chat. I hope I'm saying your name right. It looks like it's Malaka. If I'm saying it wrong, I apologize in advance. These people show off home as if Assad bombed them, when it was CIA and actual American-funded militants as well as American drone strikes which did most of the damage. No lies detected. It's all a plot to make Israel bigger and create the Israel Empire, or to recreate the Ottoman Empire. The U.S. might leave Israel and support Turkey instead. So the first part, how can anyone even disagree with that? Anyone with their eyes open. Now, the second part about the Ottoman Empire or Turkey, that's actually very interesting, very compelling. I haven't read that. I think that's interesting. I would like to hear your thoughts on that. You should join the Telegram community that I have going on. I can leave it in the comments whenever this stream is done. And join the Telegram community. We can have a bit of a discussion about that. I'm trying to grow a Telegram community talking about really a host of things. I'm wanting to create a group of people who can communicate about stuff like this, to be an alternative to the Fox News style conservatives, to actually be a more consistently right-wing group. Another comment from Malaka. My goodness, you've left a lot of comments. Thank you. Malaka said, Reagan making no-fault divorce legal was a deal breaker for me. Reagan dumbed down American political discourse into progressive versus progressive light. Obama murdered it by bringing welfare into the mix. Yeah, the whole thing about divorce is a very nuanced discussion. I do think that there are times where you should go out, but if you're just going to cite irreconcilable differences, I think that was a mistake. So I understand where you're coming from. Again, there are times these irreconcilable differences lead to other things, leads to someone sinning. I'm a Christian. So if that were to happen, if sin is being committed or abuse of some kind, that's a different situation. Malaka also said, again, sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, look at Italy. The only reason full-blown communists are not able to get in power is due to a previous fascist leadership. Same with France and Portugal. Sure, they are now taken over by liberals, but, and then he left another one, he or she, they are easier to deal with than full-blown ML lunatics. So liberalism and progressivism / communism work together all the time. I think that's kind of what you're saying here when you say they're full-blown communists are not able to get into power is due to a previous fascist leadership. Same with France and Portugal. Sure, they are now taken over by liberals, but they're easy to deal with now than full-blown ML lunatics. Liberalism and progressivism disagree on certain parts of economics, but what you see is the two of these sides working together to squash the right. Whenever the right wants to get into power and say, stop the egalitarianism, stop the feminism, sorry for the misspeaking, stop the progressivism and the screwing over of the common man by bringing in so-called free trade and things like that, and bringing the third world. Whenever the radical right, the real right, it's not even that radical, starts to come into power, liberalism and progressives sound the same. They start calling you names. They don't actually point at policy and say how what they're advocating for is better. They can't. Because if they were to try to do that, their argument is dead on arrival. These arguments that they make always negatively impact the working class. And there's really no argument to the contrary nor evidence to the contrary. The important thing for people on the right to keep in mind, there's really two things. I'm almost 30. I'm not old. But there's some of you out there who are probably really young who are listening to this. Stop trying to deprogram wokesters. Stop trying to deprogram liberals and leftists. There's really no magical tool that I can give you or anyone else, I would argue, can give you to deprogram them. They have got to come to us. If someone leaves the left, that's where you and I step in and say, hey, have you ever read this? Hey, have you ever read Schmidt? Hey, have you ever read Clyde Wilson? Have you ever read Pat Buchanan? Start bringing them into a more right-wing direction. They've got to come to us, though. If you go to your liberal cousin and start talking to them about Pat Buchanan, all they're going to do is call you a racist and you're going to lose a relationship. I'm sorry to say it, but that's unfortunately the way that it is. And I know that partly from experience. Not completely, but partly. So, with that being said, we can try to red pill, so to speak, people that are moving toward the center. Now, there's going to be people in the center, and they're going to sit there their entire lives. And there's nothing that you and I can really do about it. Be okay with that. Because of this, there's always going to be three groups. Basically left-wing, centrist, and right-wing. And the centrists, over time, usually start siding with the left. As I said earlier, the liberals siding with the communists and the progressives. There's an amazing series about this done by Pete Quinona. It's about the Spanish Civil War and how the anarchist types, the liberals, they called themselves the Republican Party. They were really liberals, and in some cases they were actually, again, it's weird because you got liberals here and then you got communists here, and you're like, well, one is almost like a libertarian and one wants the dictatorship of the proletariat and things like that. How are these two groups in common at all? Well, what they do have in common is not allowing people on the right to take power. And so they will play this game where they shut down the right. You ever see the meme of, I think it's like a white guy, like a little cartoon, white guy and a pink guy and then a blue guy. And the white guy and the pink guy are going at it, fighting. And the blue guy is like, hey, over here. And then the two of them join hands and then turn on their heel and punch the blue guy. Well, that's liberals and communists fighting the right. And the other thing that I would say is that, so I said first, you can't convert these people. Secondly, stop talking about politics at work. Too many of our people are getting fired. We need to make money. We need to have power. you need to be able to contribute politically to people that are actually right-wing. And we need to also create covenant communities like Hoppe talks about. I'm not even a Hoppian. But if we were to implement some of what he says, we need communities to be built where we are able to share our ideas and talk to each other safely, legitimately safely. So we're not going to be arrested by the state, with people that we can trust, right? So that's something that I would say to you. Stop talking about politics work, because people are getting fired. I'm really tired of seeing right-wingers getting fired. I really am. It's sick. And it's because we live under this perverse administration state. Again, Trump's trying to do little things to fix it. I understand that. But the deep state is still in place in many cases. Some of them have been fired, but are they still looking for work? Probably not. They're probably going to find another thing to do. Another way to subvert our country, our nation. So stop talking about politics with people that you can't talk to, people on the left. If you want to talk to them in front of an audience and have an exchange of ideas, that's one thing, okay, if you're a public figure. And don't talk about it at work. Really keep your mouth closed and just work, make money, and do other things to stop them, to have power politics games played against them, okay? Those are two things I would give you advice to do if you're a young person listening to me, because it's important. I don't want people getting hurt. And I've not been fired because of my politics, and nor will I ever. Okay, a couple other comments I'm going to read, and I need to go pretty soon. Monica also said, I agree. Trying to actively convert them just dilutes our message and makes our vision distorted just to accommodate their shenanigans. No lies. Another great point. He said, becoming a preacher at work just makes people check out and makes it easier for the HR proletariat to fire the dissidents. Amen. The other thing that you need to do simultaneously is stop caring about what these people say about you. So when they scream racist, shrug. When they say you're misogynistic, laugh. Who cares what they think? These people don't know what a man or a woman is. These people think that Satan is God in many situations. These people worship the devil. And the ones that don't are confused about basic questions. If you ever listen to someone that is a real right-winger debate a leftist, you want to pull your eardrum out whenever you're listening to the left-winger talk. It's nothing but crap and propaganda. And the right-winger, you listen to them, try and deal with it as well as they can. It's like living on two different planets. So that's why I said what I said about the whole converting thing. And also what I said about work. Because I don't want to see any of you get hurt. There's too many people that are getting hurt by spouting their mouth off at work. And that's something that's very easy to do when you're a young person. You feel like you're untouchable. And then the reality of what did he just say? The HR proletariat, yeah, smacks you down and lets you know, no, we're in control. We're the one with power. Big reason why I used to be a libertarian and am no longer. Libertarians are not willing to use power against their enemies. And we must. That is something that has to happen. And a big one, I was Joshua living in Egypt, to use a parable or an allegory. And Pete Quinones helped bring me out of this. Because what he did is he pointed out, how did libertarianism do under COVID? Was more government just the answer? Not particularly with Florida. DeSantis signed laws saying you as an employer cannot require your employees to get vaxxed or have to wear masks. Power is what won, not just cutting government back. Another comment here in the chat. Libertarians side with communists the moment you go against their prized lamb known as the homosexuals. If you're waiting for me to disagree, it's going to be a long stream. I'm not going to disagree with that. So I personal story here. Years ago, I had a mentor who was very libertarian. And to be fair, he was not particularly a woke libertarian, but he gave me some bad advice. And I'm not playing the victim here. I made the decisions that I made. But I started accepting friend requests from everybody with the libertarian profile picture or libertarian quote in their bio. I ended up having, it had to have been over 2,000 friends. And most of them were people that were libertarians. And yeah, I had a decent little following going on for a while. And I would post stuff. And if it ever questioned libertarian orthodoxy or anything about the LGBT, oh my goodness, people got so triggered. these libertarians who are all about democracy would come out and be like, we cannot believe that you are against this. That makes you a narrow-minded bigot. And so, yeah, I eventually got to the point where I unfriended 1,200 people. I got my friends list down significantly. And I don't have any, the only libertarians I'm friends with are cool ones. People like, I have no quarrel with Hoppe or Tom Woods or Lou Rockwell or Ron Paul. I shouldn't say no quarrel. What I mean by that is no quarrel personally. Politically, are there going to be things we differ on? Of course. But I think these people are genuinely good people that just want the government off their back so they can live their lives. No problem with that at all. If you just want government off your back, cool. I probably agree with you in many cases. Like I say, do I want someone to take the HR proletariat, as Malaka has been saying, off people's backs? Yeah. And if that's cutting back government, cool. But the way that it's going to happen, here's the difference. The way that it's going to happen is you and I have to wield power to make it happen. It's not going to be walking into a voting booth and voting for the Libertarian Party candidate. They don't hold any political power. It's not even necessarily going into a voting booth and voting for a Republican. That I'm more open to. I think there's a possibility. I don't like it. I'm not a small d Democrat. I'm not for democracy. I think voting is pretty weak, really, because of the amount of people that are voting nationally. It means more when you vote for local politics, though. That I do advocate for. I think that local politics matters a whole lot more. But again, a lot of it is money. A lot of it is being able to work hard, keep your head down, and then when the time comes for a great man to run against an establishment, they have someone strong supporting them. Someone who can kind of do some of what Elon Musk has done. I have significant problems with Elon Musk. But he was able to throw in, I think it was $250 million at the Trump campaign. That's power. Right or wrong regarding the Trump administration and Elon Musk, that's power. We need right-wing, real right-wing, not fake right-wing billionaires, not the Koch brothers who are like, look at us, we're going to vote for low taxes. No, people that are actually right-wing. And the way that we're going to win, I'm trying to look at the long game. The way that we're going to win is by keeping our eye on the future. That means not giving our enemies tools to use against us, spouting off our mouths and stuff like that. If I were to give any other advice to young people, and I'm going to close off this section of what I'm saying and go on to something else probably, be careful about what you say online, because the NSA has a lot, and if they want to cancel you, they eventually will. It doesn't matter if you create a burner account, even a VPN, that's a lot smarter, I will grant you. By all means, use a VPN, good. But you got to be careful, because people will find a way to tie it to you. Be careful, people. Now, following people and listening carefully, by all means do that, even with people that the regime we're living under doesn't like. Don't let the regime dictate who you get to listen to. But should you be mindful, not saying they should be able to censor you, but should you be mindful about what you say before you say it? Yeah, be careful. Again, I just don't want people getting fired. I want people to be in a position of strength, not weakness. So that's what I would say. Back to Syria. These people wandering into voting booths and voting for whoever has an R next to their name don't all have bad intentions. If you took that away from what I said, sorry. Some of them have good intentions. What we should do, though, is remember that good intentions do not always bring about good results. In fact, many times it's the opposite. People use the expression, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Well, the road to heaven is also paved with good intentions. There's going to be very few people who do the right thing for the wrong reason. They're out there, okay. I'm not saying there's zero, but it's hard. It's an exception. So there are people with good intentions, probably the people listening to this, who are going to do the right thing. There's also people with good intentions who are doing the wrong thing. Let's see. I have another couple comments here. Malaka, there are base libertarians, but you don't see them continuously berating a certain Austrian painter or a certain blad man in. Okay. There are base libertarians, but you don't see them continuously berating a certain Austrian painter or a certain, I think he meant to say bad man in Italy. And then the next one was Elon Musk and his 5 Mossad honeypots. Other than that, I am fine with him. He is necessary for an actual right to form. I understand what you're saying. I do. You know, the problem is if we critique any positive move in the right direction from any of these billionaires, they're going to say to themselves, well, I mean, heck, when Mark Andreessen or Elon Musk said anything, people on the right had nothing but negative things to say about them. So why even bother trying to do what the right wing wants? They're just going to criticize me anyway. So we got to be careful. There's a nuanced discussion, is what I'm saying. There is a time to say, all right, you're not really on our team. And look, when it comes to tech, Elon has some very strange beliefs. He wants to put chips in people's heads and stuff like that. Are there certain scenarios where that should be done or could be done correctly with someone with seizure disorder or something like that? Maybe. I mean, I would think that'd be more of a biological discussion than a technological discussion. But I have significant problems with that. I don't want one. And if he wants people to be free to choose, okay. The problem is what happens. Bad people move in and subvert something that ordinarily would be okay. So if Elon Musk wants to create a medical technology, some kind of a chip in people's heads, and again, he has good intentions, he just wants to help people that are suffering. That on its own is not the problem. The problem are these scum. The problem is the scum, like Anthony Fauci, who studies things with legitimate purposes, like AIDS and SARS-CoV. But then what does he do? He looks at this and says, well, how can I benefit the most from this? How can I make the most money? And that's what's going to happen, unfortunately, with the tech research angle. The reason I have significant, not really fear, because I don't have fear, I'm at peace because I have Christ, but in some sense, concern, not really worry or fear, but concern about this tech stuff, is because evil people are going to come in and subvert. Again, good intentions, but bad results. All right, so that was a bit of a diatribe where I went off to the side. I was answering some comments. Back to Syria. Some of these people have good intentions. They vote the way that they vote. They watch the shows they watch because they think that they're going to be more informed. But unfortunately, what do they then do? They go in and vote for neocons and war hawks. And so keep that in mind when speaking to people that are more mainstream right. Speak in a way that is strong and truthful, because it's not necessarily about like addressing Sean Hannity. If you see me, for example, on X, I'm going to still say tweeting at Lindsey Graham or Sean Hannity, I'm not saying what I'm saying to change their mind. I'm saying what I'm saying to get the people in their audience to start thinking a little bit more. Like, this guy has a point. Hannity and Lindsey Graham have been lying about this for years, right? The point is there's going to be a certain amount of people in the mainstream right who are going to move rightward, actually notice things, listen to people like me, listen to people like Pete Quinones, Thomas 777, and The Fundamental Principle by DE. I still call him DE even though he's released his first name. So people like that, right? And so these people that don't necessarily have bad intentions, though, should we ally with them? Should we recognize that they don't all have bad intentions? And should we say, well, therefore, they're our brother? No. Because too many of them are going to try and drag you to the left. And that we don't need. You need to be in a group with kindred spirits. If you guys are watching on Twitter, I'm actually going to do this right now. I have a Telegram community. I'm not the most active in it because there's not a lot of people in it. But I'm trying to grow it and talk to you guys about a lot of these issues. You can also talk to me on Substack. That's another good way to do it. There's a chat feature on Substack as well. And so that's a good way also you can talk, as I can post out and you guys can comment and talk to me if you guys want to have a discussion. But yeah, I really want to build this up. And why? You know, let me talk about this. Why do I want to do that? Because the way that we're going to win, a couple reasons, is with a group of people that can communicate and talk to each other. And even though Telegram is not perfect by any means, it's a little bit better and a little bit more mainstream. It's balancing that mainstream and fringe section, if you will. because there are people on there who have been banned for being too right-wing, and I get that. I just tweeted, or about to tweet. It'll take it a couple minutes probably to show up, the Telegram group chat. But I'm trying to build a community of people that can talk to each other and encourage each other. And that's an important thing, because if you're on X, yeah, it's way more free speech oriented than it used to be, but it's not nearly as good as it could be. And again, Telegram's not perfect either. Gab really is one of the best. Gab is awesome. I really like Gab, but it's not as mainstream. It's between that mainstream and kind of fringe, right? And so, to personal story here, tell you guys something. When I was young, when I was in college, and even before, I was very, very political. I listened to shows like what I do. I listened to people like that. At that point, Charlie Kirk was tiny. He was really not that big when I was back in high school. And so I felt alone. I did. Because there was really no one in my class that I could talk about this kind of stuff with. And yeah, the internet can be dark and bad and evil, but it's also got a lot of potential. And part of that is uniting people on the right together and talking to each other and having a community, a sense of caring about each other. And it's just not to get out our Care Bear flag and say, we care. No. We're men. We're not women, right? We're going to actually have an intellectual conversation. And part of that is iron sharpening of iron. Sometimes iron sharpening iron is a little bit unpleasant. It hurts a little bit, right? But it leads to growth. Growth, whenever you plant a seed in the ground and it's growing, is painful a lot of times. It hurts. And whenever you are hurt by the world out there, even if you get beat up physically, it takes a while to heal. But when you heal because you've been around the block once, you get a little bit smarter. And that's part of what God knew whenever he set up the foundations of culture and society, is that the older should help and lead the young and shepherd the young. And again, I'm not old and wise, of course not. But I can share with you some of my life experiences and help you guys out there. And I'm trying to cultivate a group and grow a movement that is strong and doesn't listen to the bullcrap that the centrist neocons talk about. So that's part of what I'm doing with Telegram. I'm going to be blasting out the Telegram group chat everywhere so people can join. Okay, so what else should I say? It looks like I have another comment. Getting banned from Bitchute is a sign of honor, definitely going on the right track. I have not heard about people getting banned on Bitchute. Man, I mean, I thought Bitchute was actually very free speech oriented. It turns out, maybe not. But yeah, there's Be Like Roman. Here we got another one. It just popped up. Be Like Roman von Ungern-Sternberg, true patriot. Don't know about him. Just because I want to be able to add something. Roman von Umberg-Sternberg. I don't believe I've heard that name. If I have, it's been very, very brief. So thank you for the suggestion. I will look him up. So while I write that down, man, this is actually turning into one of the most viewed streams I've done, and I appreciate all of you guys who are watching. Like I say, I was younger. I didn't feel like I had much of a direction or much of a community. When I was young, I felt like I wasn't nerdy enough for the nerds, and I was too nerdy for the regular people. I would want to talk about something with history or politics, sometimes something in literature, sure, or like some mythical creature or something kind of fringe, or like the Chronicles of Narnia or something, because I was, again, I'm kind of a nerd. But I wanted to talk about politics a lot when I was younger. And I felt like I didn't have a group. And I struggled with identity as a younger man because I didn't know who my tribe, my group was. Typically all the nerds get together and talk about video games and what have you. And then all the jocks get together and talk about football and stuff like that. And look, as I get older, I appreciate especially things like UFC. I like watching that a good bit more than anything like football. But that being said, I had a problem in a way with identity. And that's part of why I do what I do. I want you out there to feel like you can fit in and belong. And that's part of why I do what I do. So with all that being said, right, what else do I want to do here? I've talked a little bit about community, and that's important. If you're coming here for the first time, you can go back and listen. So by all means, do that. But also, secondly, why I do what I do is to educate the right. I've been beating the drum of Fox News bad, but I'm trying to be part of the solution. I know it feels like it's been in every touchy-feely movie ever. And does anyone else get spammed by dumb Facebook posts where you go into Facebook and you're like, well, who is this and why am I seeing their post? And it's no one you're following. And it's some inspirational quote. Well, here's what I'm about to give you. Be the change you want to see in the world. There's actually something to that, though. It's overspoken. It just, people have overplayed the heck out of that one. It feels like everybody and their mama is saying it constantly. So on the one hand, I'm sorry for bringing it up, making you cringe a little bit. But part of it is it's not just enough for me to sit on the sidelines and say, those people over there are fake conservatives or fake right-wingers. I got to do something about it. I'm not content to just sit back and say, they need to do better. They need to do better. Well, get behind a microphone. Get in front of a camera. Make a podcast and talk about this kind of thing. So anywhere you go, pretty much on my social media, everywhere you go, I have my statement of why I do what I do, my mantra, the credo of the podcast, educating the right. That's why I do what I do. It's an important thing to note. All right, here we have another one. I'm trying to keep up with chats as they happen. Blocka, the moment I click on a leftist account by mistake, my entire feed becomes leftist garbage. You know, the problem with that is a lot of these accounts, what they'll do is very tricky. They'll post something funny, and you'll say, oh, that's hilarious, and follow them. Then the whole rest of their feed is Trump bad, right-wing bad, abortion good, trans kids good. You're like, how the heck did I start following this person? Well, it's because one funny post that they did post, you liked it, or as a result, followed that person. And then they decided to become a machine of propaganda, just nonstop bull crap coming from their account. So yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, if you like one thing or follow one leftist account, boom, 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 you get a whole bunch of more. And I mean, let's be quite clear. Who's in charge of Facebook? Who's writing the algorithms and who's the CEO? Right? Or the president. I don't even know if he's technically the CEO anymore. He's the owner in many cases. He has stockholders, but yeah, he probably owns a majority share. He started the company, and I'll say, I mean, I give Zuckerberg credit for that. He started the company from nothing. Or did he? Did any part of the government, any NGOs fund his rise? Might sound like a conspiracy theory, but you got to ask, how is Facebook currently being used? Follow me? So back to the purpose and the credo of this podcast, why I do what I do. I do what I do to educate the right. And I'm going to have to go probably in a few minutes. This stream has actually gone on longer than I thought because there's been a lot of interaction. I appreciate it. So how does this work? Well, every so often, I try and do it every weekend, but not always. I will come on here and do a stream talking to you guys about something. But then I also have a podcast going on that is pre-recorded. And if you guys want to ask me questions that I'll answer on the podcast, you can do so. You got to go to Substack or Telegram. It's very easy. Okay. So I'm not hard to get a hold of. I'm really not. I probably use too much technology to a fault. You know, I probably pay too much attention to my phone. Now, there are times I completely go away and don't listen to technology. Or Sunday, I'm pretty much Sabbatarian when it comes to Sundays. I really don't look at technology or social media at all. You got to set limits for yourself, right? But so that being said, I do live streams, try and do one every week. Not always succeed, but I try to. And then less regularly, I upload episodes to a podcast. Now you will see, for example, if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble, all you got to do is go to my channel and you're like, dang, he released an episode today. That was 2 hours long. Yeah, that's kind of why. It's not every week that I have the opportunity to make something like that. It's something that I make over time, and I want it pretty much exactly how I want it. I'm going for quality, not quantity, when it comes to the pre-recorded stuff. I want you to know that when an episode of mine drops, that you're going to like it a lot, and it's going to be something worth listening to for 2 hours or for an hour and a half or for 1 hour, whatever it is. I did an episode recently about this book, A Case for Amillennialism, in my first episode having to do with dispensationalism versus amillennialism. I have a series going on about that. My first episode in that series, I went for about 45 minutes, between 45 and an hour. And then my review of The Reactionary Mind, in which I read a lot of this book to you, written by Michael Warren Davis. That was the 2-hour one, almost. It was like an hour and 56 minutes, I think. The episode dropped on YouTube and Rumble and Odyssey today. So, quick note about that. Spotify is having technical problems. I use Anchor, formerly known as Anchor. It's now Spotify for podcasters, to make my podcast, and they've had technical glitches. So as a result, that episode is not going to come out on audio very soon. When it does come back, when they have done that scheduled maintenance, they are addressing this problem. When they do, then the episode will drop on audio as well. So it'll go on Audible, Spotify, and Amazon Music. I'm working on getting on other podcast platforms as well. Other than Telegram, my base of operations is Substack, which you can find me there very easily on Substack. And I also drop my exclusive content where I only talk to paid supporters over there. And I also drop content where I talk to you guys, all of you guys who are subscribed. And that includes the audio of my episodes, my pre-recorded content. Let's see. Exactly, says Malaka. I've been honeypotted many times. I think that might have to do with the social media conversation he and I were having, he or she. Is it your name a reference to the Assad squadron, or am I misattributing the meaning of the channel name? So the channel name, The Fog and the Whirlwind, is not in reference to that. I assume you're talking about the channel name, The Fog and the Whirlwind, not Gelos Aristarchos, which is my name over on Twitter and places like that, and Substack. So The Fog and the Whirlwind does not come from that. The Fog and the Whirlwind comes from, I remember I was taking a personality assessment years ago, which some of them are silly, some of them actually have some principles there. And it had an argument about, it tried to say that I really avoid paths that lead to a fog of confusion. And hearing the term fog of confusion, I thought to myself, you know what? I kind of took it and applied it to something else. I said, there's a fog of confusion over our country, right? Over our nation. There's a fog of confusion of what is right, what is wrong. But then I thought to myself, you know what would get rid of a fog? Some kind of a storm, a whirlwind that would just get rid of everything. And I used to actually have it in my loop before I would go live, that I would have, video of me talking, saying there's a fog over our country right now. The corporatist globalists have taken over the uniparty, and we've allowed ourselves to get to this point because we don't know history, and because our people are moving from godliness towards godlessness, 1 degree at a time. But we can stop it. What stops a fog? A whirlwind. What stops liberalism? People armed with the truth. And greater is he who is within us than he who's within the world. And then I would say this is the fog and the whirlwind. Then I would begin the live stream, typically. So that being said, that's the meaning of the podcast, of why my podcast is called The Fog and the Whirlwind, my channel on YouTube, my channel on Rumble. And by the way, guys, I will be putting out this live stream in audio form out on YouTube. It'll be just audio. So, yeah, that's basically the concept. Looks like I have another chat. Malaka says, nice. Thanks. Okay, people. I actually have not eaten since, well, I haven't had a full meal anyway, since early this morning. I actually had to work, which is why I went live a little bit later than sometimes I would. Normally, I would try to go live at about noon. Sometimes I go live at noon. Sometimes I go live at 3 on Saturdays. It really depends on my schedule. So I usually try and do a stream for about an hour. That's almost as long as I've gone. And so I really have enjoyed talking to you guys. Closing thoughts. What are my closing thoughts before I say goodbye? We don't have to have a numbers game. Sam Adams was not perfect, not a perfect man. The founding fathers, there's certain quibbles that I have with them. I still think they are preferable to other people. I actually said in my review of this book, again, the episode dropped on YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey today. I pointed out that there's actually 2 kinds of liberalism. It's kind of weird to be like, that's all libertarianism. That's all liberalism. I would argue there's 2 kinds. You've got the more right-wing liberalism, and I would point to the founding fathers like that. They believed that you should vote, but you could only vote if you owned land and if you were a man, right? They were not for universal suffrage at all. No, these guys were not. They wanted to wield power, and they wanted an educated minority to yield power. It wasn't an oligarchy. You could argue it was an oligarchy, but dadgummit, it was much better than what we got now. And I'm not even necessarily saying I'm for an oligarchy. I'm definitely not for democracy. But those guys were more like a right-wing liberal variant. And I would argue that Hans Hermann Hoppe is like that too. So is Tom Woods, so is Lew Rockwell, Ron Paul, people like that. Then you've got liberals who are more like, to just name a few, I think one example of just a basic liberal would be like Stephen Bonnell, Destiny. Yeah, I know. That idiot. Yeah, that guy. Other examples would be probably just anyone you watch on MSNBC or CNN. Rachel Maddow, people that constantly worship democracy. Those people, when you look at the fundamental principles of liberalism, it's about individualism, but it's in a more left-wing direction. It is closer to the same source of the left, right? Whereas right liberals, again, in many cases, they're just like, we just want to be left alone. Let us be good, morally good, God-fearing people, but get government off of our back. Well, and I say this in the aforementioned episode that released today, I do believe that government is best which governs least. I do. But that being said, I want a government that is small but strong. I want a government that's able to do some things. I want it to have some teeth. When there's someone evil, I want them to be able to have them freaking arrested and or have the state kill them. There's a time for that. There's also a time to say, all right, well, I'm not your dad, I'm not your mom, and I'm going to let you live your life. And that's a good thing too. I don't want the government coming in here and telling me how to boss my children around or raise them. I want to raise them in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. I'm a Christian. I think that's the best way to do so. And other than that, I don't really want the government to do much. I want them to make sure I'm not getting screwed by malefactors. Sure. I mean, I think there's a place for that. I do. But I don't want them to do things like make men and women get along better, make the races get along better. Please just stop. Don't. A couple more comments. Based. I guess it was when I was talking about not liking democracy. I'm not sure. James Lindsay. Oh, what are you talking about, man? James Lindsay is my favorite political commentator. I'm kidding, okay? I'm kidding. That guy. Oh my gosh. The funny thing about it is I remember it became a meme. People would talk about whatever the left accuses you of, that's what they're doing, right? Whatever a liberal accuses you of, that's who they are and what they're doing. So they would come out and say, Trump colluding with Russia. And then something would come out of them colluding with Russia or colluding with a foreign country, right? China, like Feng and Eric Swalwell, man, one of the dumbest people to ever serve in Congress. I don't know how the heck that guy has any credibility, right? Oh my gosh. But yeah, the funny thing is, so like James Lindsay will say, woke right, hashtag woke right. And then whenever you ask him about being illiberal, or ask him about being truly right-wing, then he has a freaking meltdown. Malaka says, Ivan the Terrible and his secret police was pretty nice. No comment. Talk to me over on Substack. Talk to me over on Telegram. I don't want to get banned. I've always had a fascination with Russia. We'll just put it that way. That's one thing about me. Can I kind of go back to what I was saying when I was a young lad, when I was way younger, is I've always had a fascination with reading about Russian history. In fact, that's part of the reasons why I know a little bit of the Russian language. But yeah, Ivan the Fourth was an interesting character. Of course, did he commit terrible crimes? Yeah, probably. I mean, was he a human that bled red? Yeah, I mean, he had red blood. But there's actually a book. Shoot, I don't have it nearby. Otherwise, I would show it to you, Malaka. I don't think I have it nearby. Hold on a second. Actually, it is over here somewhere. Maybe I can show it to you. It's got Ivan the Fourth. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. Hey, never fear. I got it sitting right here. How about that for a book? How about that? Yeah, so the real lives of Europe's most infamous rulers. Part of being illiberal means that there's not really anything off the table. So, I mean, I have all the time. It's like a big thing with me. It's okay to be illiberal, right? So, you look at everything. There really shouldn't be much out of bounds. And are there certain critiques that you're going to have of this guy over here, of Spengler versus Hegel, or versus Yaki, or versus Schmidt, right? Yeah, of course, there's going to be things you say, I'm more of this or more of this. One thing I will say too is I try to be careful about infighting, pointless infighting on the right. So if you're a Spenglerian, I'm not going to say I am a Schmittian and I will die on that hill. Or if you like Ivan the Fourth, I'm not going to say I like Caesar and I can't believe, or I like Alexander the Great and I can't believe that you like Ivan the Fourth. Nah, you are. As long as you're not on the left, as long as you're not a liberal, and by on the left, I would include the neocons with being part of the left. I'm not going to say, well, if you're not on the left, you're a brother, and be like, Sean Hannity, you're my friend. No, I'm not going to do that. Or I keep mentioning his name, like Megyn Kelly, therefore we're friends. No. But as long as you're on the right and willing to look our direction, willing to look the direction of people that are so-called like dissident right, I don't really have a problem with the term dissident right. I think it's an interesting term. Then as long as you're looking our way, don't really have a problem with that. I'm not going to sit here and have a bunch of stupid, childish, infantile infighting. Malaka said, Ivan hated the nobility because they killed his dad. He was a ruler of the people. He has been slandered by the CCCP. He wasn't perfect, but not a delusional tyrant. He was like Vlad. I assume you're talking about Vlad the Impaler. Dang, man. That's another one that so many people, again, did he commit certain actions that I am not particularly 100% for? Yeah, but if you want to talk about someone that's been slandered, Vlad was an interesting person. If you're talking about Vlad the Impaler. Now, if you're talking about Vlad like Vlad Putin, I'm not really going to edit what I just said. I mean, I've got big problems with Putin. I want to be very, very clear. COVID was a disaster under Putin. Oh my goodness. I mean, and in central bank digital currency, what the heck is up with that? I'm not okay with central bank digital currency. Don't like that at all. But in terms of, am I going to say, oh, well, yeah, okay, Malaka says Vlad the Impaler. Thanks, man. Malaka, вы говорите по-русски? I have some people that are Russian that follow me, so I'm just kind of curious. So, shoot, now, man, sometimes I have a little bit of rabbit brain or bag full of cat's brain. There's a line from Marvel Universe of that guy's brain is a bag full of cats. Sometimes I'm a little bit like that. No, you're not Russian. Okay. Unless you're unwilling to reveal your or not nationality, but where your family is from, the term or the name Malaka. Malaka, where is your parentage? Where is your ancestry? I am 1/4 Swedish. I've got a lot of, I think like a Swede in a lot of ways, probably my mannerism as well. I'm tall. I'm dark-haired, so not blonde, but I'm 6'8". And a lot of people, some of the tallest in the world, live in Sweden and in the Netherlands. They're very, very tall. And so I'm 1/4 Swedish, and then almost all of the rest of me is British Isles. I am either Scottish or English or Irish. Almost everything else. I have a tiny bit of French and, let's see, actually a tiny bit of Dutch too. Very little. But you're talking about as much Dutch and as much French as Elizabeth Warren is Cherokee. Wasn't that amazing? I will say again, not the biggest Trump supporter in the world. Again, I voted for him because he's better than the alternative. But wasn't it amazing to see Trump get up there in front of Congress and be like, oh, Pocahontas says no, she had to have been burning up. Burning up. Malaka, I am 6'4" and dark hair, Mediterranean skin tones. Sounds like a base Chad. Yeah, I love the fact that Trump said that. Dude, I was in stitches. I love the fact that he keeps calling her Pocahontas. That was an amazing self-own. He called her Pocahontas. Elizabeth Warren is like, I'm sick of you saying this. And Trump was like, take a DNA test. She did, and it revealed that it became a huge meme, 1,064th. And Trump's response was, well, my only regret is I can't keep calling you Pocahontas. The guy knows how to play the media perfectly. It is hilarious the way that he trolls them. And again, I've said this before. Is Trump the great man? Yes. No, I'm kidding. Trump is not the great man. Trump is probably the first one with a baton, I would say. Probably the best way to talk about it. he came out in 16 and said we need to stop immigration from the third world and from Islamic countries. I'm actually a little bit more cool with Arabs overall than I am with Hispanics. It's kind of weird. Every time I've gotten along with someone that's from somewhere out in the Middle East, yeah, okay. Do I want a ton of them moving over here? No, I don't want that. No, I don't. But I get along with them a little bit better. A lot of them are gentlemen. They carry themselves with a way of decorum and respect for other people. Some of them, again, that's going to be different here where I live than in Britain or Germany. There are people from that part of the world on every corner, so they're not really going to act that way so much. They're going to speak in their native language and not learn, for example, German or English. Are there some that do? Yeah, of course there are. But mass migration is a disaster, and that's not what I'm saying. Anyway, that was a bit of a sidebar there. So to go back to it, though, darn. Back to my parentage and ancestry. Yeah, I basically said what all I am. I was starting to say something else, and I was about Trump, but yeah, back to Trump being someone that's carrying a baton. Trump came out in 16 and said, limit immigration. We need to do something about trade. It's only benefiting these dumb capitalist types like the Koch brothers. And we need to have fair trade, not free trade. And by the way, he'd been saying that since like the late 80s. I mean, Reagan was still president in 88. And there's a 1988 interview of Trump talking to Oprah saying the same thing about trade. And so has he delivered completely on trade? Are we winning the trade war? That's a very nuanced discussion. That's a goal of 2025. I really want to talk about economics this year. It's a very nuanced discussion. Malaka says, Syrians and Lebanese better than Northern Africans. Those Syrian minorities are better than the normal run-of-the-mill Muslim Syrian. That is interesting insight. So Trump says that in 16, to go back to what I was saying. And he's starting to move the Overton window a little bit to the right. Now, did he do things? Was it a sense of maybe 2 steps forward, 1 step back? Yeah, because you know what else he did? He spoke at the RNC convention and said, we need to protect our LGBT. I said it wrong kind of on purpose. LGBT people. And then a bunch of Republicans at the RNC, which of course are going to be the most liberal people in the party, probably the people that back the RNC who are willing to go there, clapped. And what did Trump say? And I got to say, as a Republican, I'm very proud to have you applaud me for saying that. So yeah, he did bring us away from traditional marriage in some sense, which was a bit of a deceitful move because early on he said, I am pro-traditional marriage. There's still a video I remember it said, I am pro-life, pro-traditional marriage, and for the death penalty. He wasn't that pro-traditional marriage. I mean, he is in the sense of he's not opposed to it. He's in a traditional marriage, although, yeah, with all the divorce, it's kind of not so much, but a lot of that was due to his own infidelity, so it was understandable why the women didn't want to stay with him, right? Again, not saying he's a great moral person. But, so there was a couple steps forward and 1 step back, obviously with the LGBT stuff, and should he hit the abortion discussion a little bit harder? Yeah, I think you can make the argument that he should. But also, has he delivered on, for example, overturning Roe v. Wade? Yeah, he did that too. So that's a good point. But here's the thing: he did move the Overton window away from Bush towards a little bit more Pat Buchanan, a little bit more Ross Perot. Now, again, he espoused some of the policies. Did he deliver on them? That's a different conversation. But he tried to move the Overton window a little bit to the right. Trump is a baton runner. Trump is not the end game. Trump is not the great American Caesar or the great man. Trump is just someone, he's the first step. And then the next primary, 2028, it'll be up to us to choose who the next one will be. Are you going to say, yeah, it's okay to just vote for anyone with an R next to the name? Are you going to vote for Vance just because he's Trump's VP? Vance has got to earn our votes. Vance has got to at least pander to us. Vance has got to at least act like he's going to do some things that we want. For me to vote for him, certainly. Now, if you want to say, oh, well, he's tied in with Curtis Yarvin, or, oh, well, he's tied with whoever else. All right, you and I can respectfully disagree. Like I said, I'm not going to do dumb infighting with you. but he's got to do dang more to convince me. He's got to be talking a good game about immigration and trade and several other issues. War is huge. Trade, immigration, and war. You can see at the top of my profile on Twitter, my account, I have pinned, this is what this account stands for, right? He's got to do way more than just talk about cutting taxes, okay? Who else is going to run in 2028? A lot of the same cast of characters in 2016. Will Rubio run in 2028? Well, let's see. Trump's going to be over time going out of office. He's term limited unless he decides to try and do something and run anyway. Where'd that book go? I was going to show you guys a book on this topic of Rubio. I must have put it somewhere else. Dadgummit. There was a book I read, and I don't think it's within reach. Otherwise, I would show you. There's a book I read. I have it somewhere, called In Trump's Shadow. And it looks at the Republican Party post 2020. Because at that point, it looked like Trump was going to win the election of 2020. He didn't. He lost. And then this author wrote a book, David M. Drucker, In Trump's Shadow. And what this guy does, he's barely right of center. He's probably explicitly a liberal. I don't know what David M. Drucker is. Anyway, but he wrote an interesting book, though, about, I think it was maybe 10 people that are, broadly speaking, Republican. He takes a good hard look at them and says, who is this person? How do they operate politically? One of them was Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio is doing his job right now. He appears to be, anyway. He doesn't appear to be just wasting time. He is trying to stand with Trump. And what he's going to do is say, look at me, conservatives. Look at me, Republicans. I'm standing with Trump. Vote for me in 2028. He's going to try to con the voters for Trump, right? And he's a decent con man. He had a decent following in 2016. Well, how can you say that? He didn't win the primary. Well, here's the thing. This is what you got to look at. As that race wound down, it was Donald Trump who was almost always in the lead, pretty much from the first debate. As time went on, it was a race between Trump, Cruz, Rubio, and Kasich, right? Chris Christie was in the race, but he was barely polling high enough to be there. If Cruz was not in that race, Rubio would have been the one alternative to Cruz, the one alternative that had a fighting chance. Kasich hardly ever got out of 0.1. I mean, the guy was a complete loser. He lost his own state of Ohio in the primary, right? So with that being said, but if Cruz was out, Rubio would have had a little bit more of a chance. He would have lost, of course, but would have had a little bit more of a chance. He was really good at talking a good game, of being on Univision, speaking Spanish, trying to get people to talk to him, and trying to get people that were in the conservative voting ranks to vote for him. He's a relatively well-spoken guy. Not perfect. I mean, Marco Bot happened, right? I'm old enough to remember Marco Bot. And that was a big flub that he never really recovered from for the rest of the primary. But other than that, he was a pretty well-spoken guy. And he will. He will try to con the American people in 2028. This book I mentioned by David M. Drucker called In Trump's Shadow has a chapter on Marco Rubio. So Senator Rubio, when he ran against Trump, he lost. But he was also up for election in November. And he barely won. He barely held on to his seat November of 2016. And this author, David M. Drucker, points out Rubio got on the phone with his staff and said, Trump beat me by a lot in the primary, and I barely held on to my seat. What's up? What's going on with this party? There's something that I'm clearly missing, right? There's something going on that I thought Reaganism 2.0 was going to get me elected. And it turns out that no, more Buchananism is what the people wanted. Again, that's kind of how Trump ran. Whether he delivered or not is a separate discussion. In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. And so Rubio got on the phone and talked to these people and said, I'm missing something. I mean, how can I change so that I will get reelected? That's the kind of calculating guy that Rubio is. Now, is he going to serve a purpose right now and speak to, for example, Latin American people that we're trying to do diplomacy with, that Trump's trying to do diplomacy with? Yeah, sure. Of course. So is he doing his job? Yeah, I think he's doing his job. I don't think he's just actually trying to subvert Trump. What incentive does Rubio have to subvert Trump? No, the bigger long game would be to do a good job, and then in 2028, then that's when the great con comes out. That's when he becomes the Trojan horse. That's when he can say, America, I'm conservative, vote for me. And then he gets in there. What does he do? Does he do anything about illegal immigration? It's laughable. Anyone would think that he'd be a hawk on immigration. Look at how he talked to Cruz back in 2016 about the Gang of Eight amnesty bill. Look no further. So that's something that's worth noting about Rubio. So Rubio is not the guy. Rubio is not going to be him. Vance might be. Mixed feelings, really. I see some bad. I see some good. Good only in the sense of I think that he understands where the winds are blowing, and maybe to his core he's a good guy. Not really sure. It's a hard one. Anyone else other than kind of who I've been talking about, it's going to be a tight one. 2028 is going to be a very, very interesting election cycle because we'll be coming off of the second term of Trump. I have a couple comments. Let me read them right quick. Malaka, Stalin had a good law in this regard. I believe it was Prop 127. I'm sorry, I've been talking for a while. Refresh my memory. Stalin had a good law in what regard? Sorry, I probably should have read it right when you were saying it. Trump is the setup for Caesar. Baron Caesar 2032. When one of the greatest memes that I really liked was when he was at the inauguration and whispered something to Biden, or maybe it was to Harris, and Biden had this crestfallen look on his face. Some people are trying to say Stalin had a good law on homosexuality. Okay, thanks, Malaka. There's an amazing meme. Crap, maybe I can share it with you guys. I think I have it saved of all the different things that communists have said about homosexuality. And I'm going to try and put it up on screen here so you guys can screenshot it. It's freaking hilarious. Because the funny thing about it, guys, is all these people are like, I'm a communist and I'm gay. And then you look at actually a lot of what the communists said about homosexuality. They did not have very favorable things to say about being gay. And it's really funny because if you were to take away the name, a lot of people would say, oh, what is that? Like some far right winger? No, this was actually a communist. Like, I think one was from Che Guevara, which is like, there is a cure for this, which would imply maybe a flying lesson off the top of a building or something. I don't know. But yeah, there's just a lot. And I can't find the meme right now. I'll have to find it and I'll probably put it on Twitter or something. But yeah, there's a hilarious meme of all the different quotes from communists and stuff that they've said. There was one, I think it was like, hard work will make them become good men. I think that may have been something Lenin said. So freaking funny. But yeah, apparently Stalin had a law about homosexuality. Yeah, there was a quote from Stalin in there too about being gay. I forget exactly what it was. It was freaking hilarious. Trump is a setup for Caesar, Baron Caesar 2032 when. I know you're probably joking, but I don't know. I don't know what Baron's politics are. I certainly don't think that if you spend going on 12 years slandering a guy's dad, that this guy is going to like you that much. Now, there are some people who say, oh, well, you kind of have the angry child phenomenon of, oh, he's going to go the opposite of his dad. He's going to be very much Democrat. I don't know. I mean, his siblings sort of are, not Don Jr. or Eric from what I can tell, but oh gosh. Ivanka is not a right-winger. No. Enough said. No, I'm not going to get into who she's married to. So, yeah. Right. So now that being said, Barron may be like his siblings. I don't know. I think he's probably, in a way, a mama's boy, and Melania might be more right-wing than we think. And so, yeah, I think that it'll be interesting. 2028 Marco deportation edit. Apologize. 2028 Marco deportation edit. Don't quite understand. Homosexuality, yeah, you were clarifying there. Malaka says, I think Barron is the prodigal son. He even does the under the ear salute. Okay, I don't know. I haven't seen that at all. I also am not familiar with what an under the ear salute is. Maybe someone else watching can educate me on that, or maybe you don't want to. But I don't know. I don't know if it's some like perverse thing. I've genuinely never heard of the under the ear salute. Okay, so man, what else, guys? I was talking about closing thoughts. I said, oh, we're going to do closing thoughts, and I ended up going for another 30 minutes just talking to the chat and just talking about stuff in general. Talking about 2028. Yeah, so you said Trump is the setup for Caesar. Yeah, I absolutely think so, because a lot of what Trump is doing right now with Doge and things like that, I do really think is probably good. And here's why. Trump doing what he does now with executive orders and Doge paves the way for someone to say, well, back in 2025, Trump did this, and do it in a more extreme direction, right? That's what I would argue. I would argue that that's the important thing. It's the semi hand raised Austrian painter used to do. Okay, that explains that. Gotcha. All right, so you explained it, Malaka. Excuse me. I am needing to eat pretty soon, but I am really enjoying sitting here and talking to you guys. So, yeah, I do believe that Trump is a setup for Caesar because, like I said, people will be able to say, well, because here's the argument. The problem is liberals and fake conservatives are so fake that they're going to say in the future, well, if you get elected, you can't do this with like an executive order, maybe banning all immigration or something like that. And what this future 2028, 2029 candidate will be able to do is say, well, I mean, back in 2025 and 2026, President Trump did this with Doge, and Elon Musk wanted to do this. And, Senator, just an example, throwing out random names, but like Senator Cotton, stuff like that. Again, not saying Senator Cotton wouldn't do anything based. Senator Cotton's a real mixed bag. Is he a senator? Is he a rep? Now I feel like I'm conflating my terms. Tom Cotton. He is an American politician that is an Army veteran. All right. He's a senator. Okay. Yeah. I thought I had that. I thought Senator Cotton was right. I was just second doubting myself. But yeah, let's just say that, if Senator Cotton does something really based or Trump does something really based now, a future Republican politician can say, well, I mean, I don't know what you're talking about. It's not unprecedented. Trump did this. That will then give them an opportunity to do what Trump did and then build on it further, continue doing it, and building up a bigger following and more support while doing so. A big thing that really needs to happen is we got to do something about the Federal Reserve. Now, okay, this is a very nuanced discussion. Has the Federal Reserve actually been doing some better things? Yeah, the current leader of the Federal Reserve, when you really do deep reading on it, Pete Quinones has done amazing content on this. The guy currently in charge of the Fed, it's a shadow war between him and the evil people on the inside, right? And so that being said, we don't need to end the Fed this second because it's in hands that actually are not that bad. But the second it goes into bad people's hands, because the Fed is quasi private, it's government, influence, but quasi private, but it affects the whole country, right? We don't, need to do anything until it goes into our enemy's hands. Then, yeah, should we have a revolt? Should we do something to actually end the Fed? Yeah, probably. I think that would be good. I think the libertarians have some good arguments on that. I think the Fed screws a lot of working men whenever they raise rates and stuff like that. Low interest rates in ways are good because it allows housing prices to go down. But that being said, I think the Fed should do nothing. It should basically just leave rates the way that they are and let people eventually catch up, I think. Malaka says, the Mark deportation edit was a joke about the deportation edit the White House made. I was saying that maybe there should be an edit where Marco was deported in 2028. It would be funny. Now that would be, imagine right when Trump is about to leave office, like his last act is, all right, Marco, thank you for your service. And he just kicks him out of the country. That would be freaking hilarious. He would be so ticked. He would have a freaking meltdown. Oh my gosh, just think about how hilarious that would be. The guy currently in charge is kind of the only Anglo guy who has ever been in charge of the Fed. I think Stormy Waters said that. Malaka with a Stormy Waters quote. You and I listen to some of the same people. Very cool guy. I really like him. I really like, as I mentioned Pete and Thomas 777. I really like Stormy Waters. Astral Lab is an interesting one as well. No, the Astral Lab is by King Pill. Then there's also Astral Flight Simulation. Malaka also, corporations should never be able to own housing or rent out housing. Oh, heck yeah. Corporations, you got to be able to work within a corporate system right now But ultimately, yeah, I think corporations have too much power, and there's a real issue with corporations, especially the people that are in charge of the corporations, the kickbacks they get from our own government, stuff like that. So anyway, yeah, I agree. I think that there's big problems with where people live being owned, run by corporations. Let's see, 1 second, guys. But yeah, I think that there's definitely a nuanced conversation to be had about economics. I do think that capitalism is it needs guardrails. I do think that there's a place for the free market as far as probably price control. I don't know if I would do price controls, but one thing we dadgum should do is we've got to do something about wages. Now, Trump, when he was in office, did a massive cutback. This is why I said earlier I kind of like supply side economics, and wages went up. I actually had graphs. I don't know if I still have the graph, but there's a graph I had somewhere that actually showed the wage chart, and it has stagnated obviously under Biden. Oh, the jobs were great under Biden. Well, how did wages do? And that's something you'll never hear these dummies on the left say. I mean, there's so many of them that are like, jobs are great. Republicans have nothing to complain about under Biden. It's like, okay, but yeah, how did wages do? How is pricing going? How's the housing market doing, guys? Is everyone able to own a house and buy a house? I don't really think so. I became a homeowner last year, and dang it, it's been a heavy price. It's been expensive. I'm just gonna put it that way. And I'm very thankful to God for what I have. Not going to complain about it the rest of this show. But it's not easy. It's not easy because of the left and the stuff they've done. Part of that is because it's a very nuanced conversation. There should be things done on the economy. There should also be things that should be completely left alone. I am a recovering free marketer, and I don't know if I'm going to leave that ever. I may be a free marketer, dyed in the wool, never going to change my mind. But then I read stats, and then I read other stuff, and I'm like, that's worth considering. What's the free market answer to that? Malaka says the Inquisition by astral flight simulation is the best. Man, louder for the people in the back. I like those, and then I like, oh dang, it went out of my mind just now. The group that Pete has on his show, the Thought Crime Syndicate, with Charles and DE and Jose. I actually have had the good fortune of having Charles on the podcast. You can find episodes with Charles Spadil on The Fog and the Whirlwind. We had a discussion about his INS history, but also some other things about immigration in general, and also mental health. Because I don't know if you guys know, but he has a background in mental health counseling and things like that. So yeah, Charles is really, really cool. Yeah, he says that pretty good as well. Yeah, Thought Crime Syndicate is really cool. I like that. I do like the Inquisition a lot. The Inquisition is really cool. So, well, guys, I am needing to eat some food, and I don't like leaving right now, but I need to. And so I've gone for over an hour and a half. And so you might see, well, how come the live stream disappeared? It's not actually going to disappear. You are going to get an audio recording of the live stream uploaded back to this channel, so that you guys can go and listen to it again. I archive what I'm doing right now, and later I put up audio only. I'm trying to make everything that I do audio only, except for the live streams, and there's reasons for that. But yeah, I just think that a lot of people prefer an audio format as well. So yeah, I that's part of what it is. But big reason why I do what I do is to interact with you guys in the chat. Malaka, I appreciate the interaction and the questions that you've had. And I think it's been a good back and forth. And so definitely you guys make sure that you are on Substack, because that is actually where I do most of my work. It's my base of operations, as I said earlier. It's easy. It's thefogandthewhirlwind.substack.com/subscribe. I just changed the bar that I have going across the screen. So go to thefogandthewhirlwind.substack.com/subscribe. Guys, I'm not here saying, give me money, give me money. Go subscribe for free. Follow me, guys. That being said, if you want to talk about things with me that I don't talk to people publicly, then become a paid supporter, and we'll have some of those discussions. You also get another benefit. You will also be able to view episodes of the podcast before anyone else. And again, certain things that I'll talk about behind the paywall, but also you'll get admission into the private supporters of the Fog and the Whirlwind paid supporter group chat. So all my paid supporters are in one group chat. Then I have another group chat I referenced earlier on Telegram where I talk to everybody, okay? So that's the other thing to do. And so make sure you do that. Also, if you guys want to follow me on social media, if you're watching me on Twitter or X, whatever we're calling it now, You'll probably already follow me on Twitter, and it's easy. I'm easy to find. It's just fogandwhirlwind at fogandwhirlwind. I'm actually at fogandwhirlwind almost everywhere, so I'm pretty easy to find. So definitely go to the description here on YouTube, Rumble, and then eventually I'm going to put it out on Odyssey. So go to the description. Find me on social media. My main Telegram channel, I have my group chats, one with paid supporters, one with everybody else. And then I also have my feed where I post stuff to Telegram. And that's t.me/fogandwhirlwind. I already said this, but Twitter is fogandwhirlwind. Instagram is also fogandwhirlwind. So I'm very easy to find. Gab too, fogandwhirlwind. I'm not as active on Gab. I'm really active on Twitter and Telegram, probably the most. And then Substack, of course. That's my base of operations. All right, let's see. Malaka says, no problem, man. And I have never used Twitter, Odyssey, YouTube, and Substack are the only things I use. So I think you're saying you do use Odyssey, YouTube, and Substack. Maybe I will use Telegram again. That's cool. If you use Substack, you're good. Just hit me up on the Substack. We can chat a little bit with everybody else. A guy that I've had on the podcast, Garner, he used to write a blog called Just the Facts. It's not called that anymore. I want to say it's called The Right Wing Christian or something like that. He was trying to come up with a good name, and I think it ended up being The Right Wing Christian. And so he has a blog, and so Garner's in there. I've also debated Garner, actually, on the show. We've had a very good faith discussion about a certain kind of side issue that's not really that foundational. But yeah, we talked, and he's also in the feed there. So definitely follow me on Substack, guys. Make sure you follow me on other social media sites that you use. Subscribe on YouTube. If you haven't already subscribed on YouTube, what are you doing? I mean, if you really like what I'm saying here, subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on Rumble, or follow me on Rumble, is that we're calling it. And Odyssey as well. If you use Odyssey, make sure you follow me as there as well. Guys, this has been a good Saturday. Lastly, don't let your white pill go down. Don't let your white pill stop. There's a lot of black pilling I've seen. And the Trump administration is not going to give us everything we've ever wanted, right? But they're doing some good things. They're at least giving us a little bit of time to fight the evil regime that we're living under. And so, for goodness sakes, stop the black pilling. If you want to have good faith criticism of the Trump administration, I'm probably going to agree with you on some of that. Like I say, I'm not going to do a ton of infighting. The only time I really give my thoughts on some infighting event or other is behind the paywall to my paid supporters. It's been more of a private matter, I guess. And then the only other time I will attack somebody is if they're either fake, right, like these fake conservatives, or if they are attacking like the dissident right or something like that. I have a big episode, a big video where I really, really hit Steve Deace hard because he was criticizing Orrin McIntyre, not in name, but basically, and Daryl Cooper and Tucker Carlson. I mean, the guy was ripping his hair out. Not literally, he's almost bald. But yeah, he was just, I mean, this guy was screaming about, I can't believe you're questioning history. And so, yeah, it was really, really kind of described. I subscribed a long time ago. I appreciate it. These are the guys who would not have supported the whites against the red. Yeah, by that, the white Russians against the red Russians. Black pillars are the morale police led by the demoralization industrial complex. Demoralization industrial complex. No lies detected, man. Thank you for subscribing, by the way. I really appreciate it. All right, guys. Peace. Christ is king. White pills only. Keep your head up. Looking forward to the next live stream. Last thing, go check out my most recent episode where I reviewed The Reactionary Mind by Michael Warren Davis. Read this book, too. It's really good. But look up the review. It's on YouTube, here on my channel on YouTube, on Rumble as well, and on Odyssey. Look that out. I'm going to be tweeting that out, by the way, on my social media as well. And I'll put it out on Substack too. Everybody, have a great evening and take care. God bless.